This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
When your lone drop race leaves you with all wins remaining in your scorecard, you know you're going to be tough to beat. It's the familiar face of Mick Claridge up at the top of the points once again. However, today's race at Zolder pits the Lotus against what could be considered its mortal enemy, chicanes. More suited to fast-flowing circuits, this car-track combo will make mistakes easy and costly. We'll see if it catches Quick Mick out as we get ready to watch round 6 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and I'll be joined later in the booth by Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Well, Belgium is sort of the forgotten child of, Zolder is sort of the forgotten child of Belgian racing, just because it has to compete with Spa, which is definitely the more famous of the two circuits here on iRacing. But this is certainly a well-known circuit in its own right and has had Formula One here as well, with the Belgian Grand Prix taking place on this track a number of times. It is only 10 turns, though. It is much shorter at just under 2.5 miles. This alt layout takes away one of the chicanes, at least to the extent that it is much faster, but it is still incredibly tricky and still can catch drivers out. We expect a lot of the passes to take place when drivers make errors into those, but otherwise there are still opportunities. To get an idea of what it is like around here, why don't we hop on board the GSRC Lap Guide.
All right, we've got Juha Norlampi in the GSRC Lotus 79, so let's do a lap around Zolder. Flying down towards Erst, you've always got to be careful about the downhill braking. It's tough hitting this apex and easy to understeer into the gravel. You don't have much time before you got to get the car to the left for Sturenwacht. This corner tightens on exit, and that can lure you into clattering over those tall sausage curves. Canal is easily flat out and simply leads you out into the entry to Bianchi. This is one of the more critical turns of the circuit. Fast and sweeping, it requires a good exit to carry your speed down to one of the more popular passing spots on the track. The Kleine chicane is tight and fiddly, but it's a heavy braking zone, and so most folks have a go into here at least once when trying to pass. Over the crest, hug tight to the left on Butte. Otherwise, you'll find yourself offline into Turleman. This is easily the most difficult of the 3 chicanes because it has 3 tricky apexes. A little lift is needed to get through the last one. However, through the banked right-hander, you should be able to hold it to the floor. That takes you on the sweeping run down to Boulderberg-Ospelt. This hairpin will be another common place for overtakes, and like most hairpins, it's best if you try to take it with a late apex. Watch out if you're side-by-side coming out, because the little squiggle of rent can complicate things. Finally, there's Ix, which in this layout is going to be terrifyingly fast. Just clip the grass on the first part, and be careful not to slip into the barrier on the exit. Hopefully, you kept it together and have now finished a lap around Zolder.
There you see a lap around Zolder in the Lotus 79. Unfortunately, Amjad, because of the Lotus 49 not working so well with chicanes, refused to get into the car, try to endure the cut course penalties that he was bound to wind up with. But Juha had run it in the Lotus 79, so at least we had a lap around here to guide you around the track. We have the championship up on the board, and as I mentioned, Mick Claridge with essentially a perfect score due to the single drop week. We have now included that, of course, moves Rob Olenek down too. Ove Trangerade stays where he is in third, so does Gary Teal, but Roman Pawlowski has certainly been doing a very good job this season when he shows up at least, and He doesn't have any drop races left, but he does jump up to to fifth in the points, jumping 3 positions. We also have the F2 Championship, and I've got Nick joining me here in the booth. What are we looking at there for the amateur status?
Well, it's always fun to watch the amateur categories in these racing series. Hugh Haycock's continuing his dominance of this right now. He's got 87 points on top, but Hideki Koivisto, he is creeping up there. He's only 1 spot back and only 17 points back now. He gets around the Australian there, Grant in 3rd. He gets around Francisco in 4th, and Colin is back in 5th, 36 points back. That's going to demote him down there, but like you said, it's very early in the season. They've got drop weeks to work with, so very exciting for sure to keep your eye on those.
And let's take a look at the Constructors' Championship, the Nations Cup as well. UK, of course, naturally leading the way, and the US is trailing thanks to Olenek and Thiel doing a fantastic job. Germany, however, have suddenly come to the fore this season. They usually don't show as well, but you can see Pawlowski, Reinhardt, and Weber, of course, jumping in there. Now, Australia and Norway are now tied because of Wright and Zoko. Very appropriate after last round at Bathurst that they would improve a little bit. But we always have viewers who might not have watched the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. Nick, what's today's race details?
Well, like you said, first of all, it's at Circuit Zolder, which is an interesting track in and of itself. It is round 6 of 12 this season, and they have 2 drop weeks instead of 4. It's a 24-lap race here. Open setups, they can do anything that you would have been able to do to these cars back when they were raced, and the points, they pay themselves out. They fan out down to 25th, so not just fighting for one of the top 10 spots here. Like in Formula 1, you're fighting for every single spot on the grid, essentially.
And as always, we are presented on the iRacing Esports Network this morning. If you'd like to see more of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, as well as all of the official iRacing World Championship Series, you can find it on IESN and get it in your feed by subscribing. Just click that big red button on their YouTube page that says subscribe. So we've got qualifying already underway out here, and no surprises. Michel Dudignon up at the top. Mick Claridge, actually, did he just? No, he did not get his first timed lap in. And in fact, he has not put any timed lap in, and it's not due to a cut course or an off track. Just got a little bit of a late start, so I'm not sure that he'll be able to get around for 2 of them.
Yeah, it's very easy in these cars. You see all the time to get an off-track penalty. Just a little bit of slide. You just underestimate how much weight you have getting into the corner. It's so easy to do that. And you only have 2 laps to play with in qualifying, too, so it makes it all the more important in there.
We watch Gary Thiel get himself up into 3rd place with that 2nd lap. Let's see if Mick can do anything. Now, Michel Dudignon is not his main worry on this, though Michel currently holds provisional pole. It's Rob Olenek who's on the front row, who's been challenging him all season. Claridge crosses the line. A 1:24.7 is good enough for 3rd, so that gets him into the mix. But he definitely does not have enough time to come around for this 2nd lap. At this point, we're just waiting on Matt Wright to take his 2nd lap, and Ben Zoko, unfortunately, the only other car out there, got both laps with an off-track and were discounted. So the Australian comes across. A 25.8 is an improvement. That's going to bump him up 1 spot into P9. Nicely done by Matt there at the last moment. With just about 30 seconds left and not enough time for Claridge to come around, our qualifying order has been set, so let's go through your starting grid for today's round 6 in the Grand Prix Legend Series. Michel Dudignon, as I mentioned, has put it onto the pole with Rob Olenek continuing to improve. He's on the outside of Michel. Mick Claridge does manage to get himself up into row 2 and 3rd with Gary Thiel on the outside of him. Daniel Sadro starts 5th with Marco Kiko on the outside of row 3 in P6. Then in 7th, you've got Ian Haycox and Hugh Haycox on the outside in 8th. Matt Wright will be 9th, and Grant Petullo rounds out our top 10. Nick?
Andres Bruno will be behind him, and Hideki Koivisto is in here in the number 12 position. He'll be starting. Paul Ferrer going to be to his rear left, with Colin Coker going to be to his outside. Jasmine Beach, Benjamin Zocco, and Robert Reynolds will round out the 17-car field here at Zolder.
So not the largest field we've seen in the Lotus 49s, but of course this is a little bit of a less popular track overall on iRacing. Still, as I mentioned, it tends to put on a pretty good show just due to the unpredictability and the difficulty in driving these cars. I think should produce some excitement for us as we watch them all line up on the grid. The Tiger car, the infamous Tiger car now of the number 3 with Rob Olenek. Everybody's lined up here for round 6 as the engines start to rev. Lights are up. Green flag is out here in Zolder, taking off the line. At first it wasn't good for Olenek, but look at the lightning start for Gary Teal. He's a little timid on the brakes. That's going to give third back to Mick Claridge, but a challenge for the lead as it's going to switch back into turn 2. And Rob Olenek trying to see if he can peel this away from Michel Dudignon. I think he might have this, Nick.
I think he might. Just like you said, the track here switches back in his favor. It's going to switch in his favor even more here. With that being said, though, Dudignon's so strong on the outside. He gets that run, and right now he's got the lead.
Streaming their way down towards the first chicane, Kleinet chicane, and Mick Claridge already on the attack. He's going to get into second place over Rob Olenek. Gary Teal still following in 4th. Behind them, you can see how many cars battling for position.
They're starting to get spread out more single file throughout the field. A little bit of a gap back there.
Absolutely, and this is certainly going to help Michel Dudignon with them fighting for second place, although Claridge hasn't lost too much touch. He hasn't really had the measure for Michel at a number of laps this season. Coming up to this very swift final chicane into Ix. And even that is going to be tough for these drivers. So far, so good from what I'm seeing. Oh, and I spoke too soon. Ian Haycox is on his lid. We'll get back to that in a little bit. This is a race over very early for the Brit. So a 7/10 gap from Dudignon to Claridge, and then just about the same back to Rob Olenek now that things are settling out. Don't forget Daniel Sadro there back in P5. This is where he started the race, but has certainly been keeping touch with the leaders. Now that things have settled out, it is all pretty much single file through the field.
Yeah, he was under some pretty heavy fire earlier from Marco Kika and Hugh Haycox, but then that incident we saw with Ian Haycox, it looks like that kind of disturbed that battle just a little bit, put a big gap in between them.
And down to the Boulder hairpin. Looks like Olenek closing in a little bit on Mick Claridge at this point. Not close enough to attack. We've got a little bit of action back in 8th. This is Ben Zocco being chased by Grant Petullo here in the mid-pack. Not really a passing opportunity into the Ix chicane. Looks to set him up down into Erst, but just, again, can't get himself that run he needs. I think we got a little bit of a time where it's clear, so why don't we take a look at that replay with Ian to see what got him upside down.
This looked like it was all by himself. He was trying to chase down Hideki Koivisto in the number 12 car. You can see Hideki there, that yellow car in front of him.
Yeah, just oversteer into the corner, and unfortunately that barrier is right next door. So that is certainly not going to help his case for a good finish today. In fact, I'm not sure that we'll see him back out on track. He's currently taking repairs in the pits as we jump back up to the top cars. Working around Dudignon, keeping Claridge at bay by roughly a second now. So he's been slowly extending that gap. Olenek, on the other hand, has been doing the reverse on Claridge. He's cut it down to about half a second on Quick Mick. Mick will want to stay ahead of Olenek again because he is his main rival in the points championship.
And you were talking just a moment ago about Daniel Sadro in 5th. He's cut that gap down to Gary Teal in front of him. He is all over that 5 car now.
Should be a good fight as Sadro has continued to show himself to be a quick learner. He's been in this car for a little bit now, but has been progressing up and up the field. Certainly different from the other car we see him in this on the GSRC, which is the Lotus 79. A lot more downforce on that machine, drives incredibly differently, but he seems to be adaptable. Other than Haycox, looks like Bruno, the only other car that's had problems, and that was not due to driver error. His connection just not good enough to survive here today, and he unfortunately has left the server. Sadro continues to hound Gary Teal down into the Boulder hairpin. One of the few good places where you can maybe have an attack. And then up to that final chicane one more time. No pit stop scheduled today, so don't have to worry about drivers diving into there unexpectedly. Gonna have some serious damage probably if they will be taking to there. And up at the top of the screen you can see Michel Dudignon setting the fastest lap. Clearly setting to try and take another win here, even though he is not in for the championship since he has missed too many races. He is going to try and snatch whatever wins he can away from his old rival, Mick Claridge. Take a look at the other Haycox. Hugh Haycox, the son of the duo, racing from France. Has himself Ben Zoko now closing in behind into the Kleine chicane. Nice and tidy for both of them, but Zoko maybe not quite as strong out of that left-right. And they break for the next one into Turleman. Getting as close to those big sausage curbs at the apex as they dare. Zoko looking a little bit better through that one.
Yeah, Zoko's been on quite a tear here in the first 4.5 laps, or 5.5 laps, I should say. Started back in 16th, but it's because he didn't get a qualifying time in, so he's really cut that in half, getting up to 8th at least here. Now looking for 7th, trying to get a chase down the backstretch here.
And unfortunately, that's not going to quite work out. Sometimes you could get passing opportunities into Erst, and he is gaining a little bit on this downhill plunge, but not enough time through the left-hander, and then back through Sterrenwacht. Ooh, look at him really close down to the apex, looking incredibly strong now. The Aussie very much threatening on the Brit. Coming up to Bianchi. This is where he really wants to get the power down smoothly, way off the apex for Haycox. He is under threat and he knows it. He stays all the way to the left. Coming up to Kleine, you don't want to go through here too wide. Hugh finally gives up the ghost as Ben Zoko moves to P7. Excellent move down into that first chicane for Ben. Now let's see if he can pull away, though. It's one thing to catch and pass, it's another to be able to be consistent enough to try and pull a gap.
Indeed, he'll be setting his sights now on the number 7, Marco Kika, in 6th. He's not in a battle of his own, but if the two guys in front of him keep battling, Gary Teal and Daniel Sadro, he might find himself in a battle, which would slow him down and put Zoko in a good position to catch him.
Yeah, Kika's certainly in no man's land at the moment, as you mentioned. About a 2.5 second gap up to Sadro. So at this point, Kika really focusing on keeping from cutting any of these chicanes just to run his own race. That battle between Thiel and Sadro just about at a stalemate of about 0.7 of a second.
Yes, Sadro just doesn't look like he can do anything to reel him in. Gary looks really good through a lot of the turns and a lot of the crucial, more technical parts of this track as well. So Daniel really struggling to try to reel him in right now.
They hit the Kleine chicane. And one thing that this car tends to do is make crests a lot more hairy than other cars would find. And this one right here, that is through Butte, where it gets incredibly light as you're trying to turn and get the power down in lower gears.
Yeah, absolutely. These cars, they really like to try to, they try to catch air as much as they can, and not only through Butte, but also the fact that it's on a bit of a curve too, a bit unsettling. Your car might come down a little further to the right than you would expect it to.
Driving on board with Sadro, just can't seem to make inroads on Gary Thiel. Thiel, one of the faster drivers, one of the few race winners in this car. There really aren't that many, at least on the broadcast races. Dudignon, Claridge, Olenek, Thiel have all won one. Don't believe we've ever seen Sadro take the top spot.
Sadro looks like he might be overdriving his car just a little bit, trying to catch Thiel here.
Certainly not what you want to do in this 49, especially with these tight, slow, fiddly chicanes. Coming up towards Kleine one more time. You can see in the background, Marco Kika has gained a little bit of time. It was 2.5 seconds. It is now down to 2 seconds from 6th to 5th. So you were right. He is gaining. Got a little bit of a battle farther back. Pole Farer, Colin Coker fighting for P12. This is a gain of positions for both drivers. Started at 13th and 14th respectively.
Every position paying out different points. Everything matters here. Even these spots back here. Coker looks like he might be getting a little bit of a tow there to try to catch him, as much as there is in these cars.
Yeah, certainly not, I think, long enough straights for them to be able to do that. They do punch a decent hole in the air once they get fast enough, because as aerodynamic as the front is, the back of the car certainly isn't. Now, up at the top of the screen, our eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that Dudignon was purple yet again, and he is now 1.5 seconds over Claridge. That's not really due to Claridge dropping back so much as it is Michel Dudignon setting the afterburners on, because you can look behind and Rob Olenek has not become as much of a threat on Mick Claridge. He is now 2.3 back from Quick Mick. So our podium are pulling away from one another. So no real chance for them to have any sort of an attack there. They do have to worry about those cut course penalties, and I know I sound like a broken record, but really that tends to be the story of the race in any car that you take here. I'm actually kind of shocked that we haven't really seen many of them yet.
Yeah, especially just through all of the tight chicanes here. These cars, they have to get them loaded up so early coming into them anyway, that's probably why they've avoided those chicanes more than other cars, because it's so hard to just send one in here.
You saw on screen, that was lap traffic that Dudignon was overtaking, caused him to have a little bit of an issue through Ix. Now, it lost him about 0.5 second to Claridge, so it's certainly not a doomsday scenario for the #1 car, but he's got to rework to try and push to get away from him once again, lest he finds more traffic. And in fact, that is coming up in the form of Robert Reynolds, who's just going to pull all the way out of the way and let them through. Getting close to the halfway point in this race. Claridge actually looking pretty strong. What was 1 second is now 7/10 of a second. Maybe getting that little bit closer has incentivized the number 2 car.
He's still got quite a lot of race left to try to close that gap for sure.
And did something happen to Colin Coker? He was very, very close. Yes, we had an issue for Colin Coker. He was on the attack for Pole Farrer into turn 1, and Farrer even went defensive on it, but Coker, with a costly mistake, had to take through the grass, and unfortunately what was 0.2 of a second has now gone up to 1.5. And in fact, he just now, as we were watching the replay, had another problem under braking into the Kleine chicane, spun off course, and it is 7 seconds from himself up to 12th Pole Farrer.
Yeah, still a good save, despite that going to be really hurting his chances later on in this race. He's now the last car a lap down, but that could have been a lot worse with the guardrail there.
And I would say he might be our first victim out here today. He is still ahead of Jasmine Beach in 14th, Robert Reynolds in 15th. And I was wrong. Hugh Haycox was able to get the car repaired and get it back out here. Last car on track. Excuse me, Ian Haycox, not Hugh, in 16th position in that number 9, but certainly not looking very aerodynamic anymore. That was our closest battle on track between Colin and Pole.
Looks like Coker's having even more problems now.
Wonder if he's got damage on that car.
Yeah, he does have a little bit in the front, it looks like.
Meanwhile, 6th place getting very, very close. This is Ben Zoko, who has chased down Marco Kika. The Finn in 6th place, doing what he can to try and retain it. He was running down Sadro, but that is extended to 4.5 seconds. I wonder if we missed a mistake for Kika as well.
Yeah, we've been seeing Zoko come up through the field so quickly, too. It's hard not to make a mistake when you're trying to fend something like that off. He's going to look to the inside here. Not going to be able to do it there in the chicane.
Just putting himself in the mirrors of Marco Kika. Look at him saw at the wheel trying to apply the throttle out of that chicane. Braking now for Turleman. A little bit of a defensive move from Marco Kika as well into that corner. Clearly he doesn't feel too safe. Exactly halfway through the race now. Down towards Boulder. See if Zoko can set himself up as we look over the rear suspension of Marco Kika. Don't need to go there. Dudignon continues to set fastest lap after fastest lap, and that was definitely a mistake from Marco Kika. Little wide into the X chicane. Here comes Ben Zoko. He's going to look to the inside. No defense from Kika. If he can hold off, he could have the inside into Sternvacht. And he does have the inside. It's 3 right-handers in a row. Unfortunately, Zoko just can't quite get up next to him.
Yeah, really tight racing there through the first couple of turns. He's going to have the advantage there as well. So it looks like Kika going to be able to hold him off for now. Well, Zoko's looking here, though.
And just to complicate matters, that is a lapped car of Colin Coker that they are quickly approaching. Colin trying to pull off to the side through Buttes. And I think he's going to manage to do it. Nicely done by Colin. Perfectly timed. Hopefully that's not the last opportunity. Mick Claridge has lost a position. Mick Claridge, surprisingly, did not lose this by running through a chicane. The Boulder hairpin, unfortunately, just was a little bit too much for him. For some reason, went straight on into the gravel, and that was an easy pass for Rob Olenek.
Yeah, just Looks like he just missed his braking point there, simply. Just a mistake by Mick, and yeah, like you said, that'll put Rob Olenek up into second, gives him a very easy overtake.
And extends the lead for Michel Dudignon to now 6.7 seconds. Claridge has recovered to the track. He's about a second behind Rob Olenek. This might give us an interesting scrap, since it seems like Mick has been quicker than Rob this race. Whoa, and that's going to hand it back easily. Olenek, unfortunately, under braking out of Butte and into Turleman. This is an incredibly difficult track on braking, it seems. That's where we've seen most of the mistakes today.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting into all of those tight chicanes and tight hairpins. And this one not as lucky as Mick Claridge just a second ago, because like you see there, he found the wall and he found it hard.
I don't think he hit the suspension. So you can see he's got a lot of damage on the front. That will slow him down a little bit. Oh, he is going to take it into the pits, though. Oh, disappointment. So that's going to promote Gary Teal into third, Sadro up to fourth, and Kika is now fighting Zoko for what is a top 5. That is our closest battle on the track.
Sadro still chasing down Gary Teal for third. We've been watching that one for quite a while, but that is now for a podium position.
Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that one. You got to give credit to Ben Zoko. Didn't get a qualifying time in, but he doesn't let that stop him from 16th on the grid to a potential top 5 today. Sadro still applying pressure on the number 5 car through Turleman. Just staying right in those tire tracks to see if he can squeeze anything out of this orange. Ahead of them, a little bit of an off track for Mick Claridge yet again into the same hairpin. I wonder if Mick has some sort of problem, and let's stay with this replay, because just after that, Sadro had an off track through X. Here's Mick Claridge's issue. Not as bad as last time. He must be having maybe a hardware problem. That happened twice. And then here's Daniel Sadro coming up to the final chicane. Just a little bit too hot. Actually has to take evasive action not to get into the back of Teal. This is highly unusual for Mick to make that same error twice. Hopefully he can get that gearbox sorted out. But this certainly helps our leader, Michel Dudignon, with 9 laps to go. A 15-second gap back to Mick Claridge. The Frenchman has just been flawless out here in Belgium.
And we were watching the battle between Zoko and Kika. That's going to be put to a standstill for now, because Ben Zoko also just had an off track of his own.
And the braking, once again, bites another one into the Kleine chicane. Let's see, it already dropped back a little bit. Fighting hard to try and get up to the back of the fin. Braking into this left-right. And the car, unfortunately, a little bit too much curb, it looks like.
Yeah, that one's a bit different than the ones we've seen before. Yeah, it looks like it just kind of hooked that curb.
This car is a little bit more compliant compared to other cars with the long suspension travel, but even still, don't want to take too much of it. That sets Zoko back about 5 seconds behind Marco Kika. Third place is starting to become something of a fight for second, where it was a fight for third before. Mick Claridge with his issues, as Gary Teal getting closer and closer. And looking at how much Teal is gaining in the braking for Boulder, I'm pretty certain at this point, Nick, that Claridge is dealing with some sort of issue, either with damage on the car or something in his actual physical hardware.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Gary's looking really good right now catching him. So Mick, I mean, yeah, it could be anything from hardware to connection. Even he might just be lagging over at that part of the track just a little bit. So it's hard to tell what he's dealing with right now, but hopefully he can get it going. Looks like he's been clean the last couple of laps, but nonetheless, Gary Teal is catching him.
Ever since his issue, he's gone from 23 and 24, 1 minute 23, 1 minute 24 to 129, 126, 125. Oh, and very sloppy through the Kleine chicane is certainly going to make it a slam dunk here for Gary Teal as he gets right up behind him. Oh, maybe not. He's not brave enough into Turleman. He wants a little bit safer of an opportunity. He sits patiently, maybe knowing at this point how quickly he's catching Mick Claridge. He's not in a hurry.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I'm guessing Gary Teal has been keeping up with all the issues that Mick Claridge has had. He's going to go the outside there through the chicane.
Side by side.
Oh.
And they certainly don't want to repeat that, and Gary Teal knows it. Mick Claridge is going to make it hard. It's towards the end of the race. He wants to keep this second place and get maximum points over his main rival, Rob Olenek, considering Olenek is in the pits still taking repairs. Well, I thought this was going to be easy for Gary Teal, but I forgot that we are dealing with the British Bulldog.
Teal's going to try to set up some kind of run here. Might not be brave enough or eager enough to get him down into the chicane, but he might be able to close that gap even more.
It certainly seems like it's the braking that's hurting Mick Claridge. So I have a feeling that all Gary's got to do is just get the car close enough, and then be better on the binders into one of these heavy braking zones. Maybe not the chicane, apparently. We know for sure that into the Boulder hairpin, Mick is having a horrible time. Let's see if he goes defensive again. Yes, indeed, holding the right side of the track.
Definitely not the preferred line through there. I don't think he had to go there that time. Gary didn't look like he was posing that much of a threat there, unless he was going to send one late.
And don't forget, this is slowing up Gary Teal slightly as well. So will this allow Daniel Sadro to maybe have a chance at a podium?
Well, Sadro's got to hustle as well, because we're down to 5 laps to go here at Zolder.
Got it down to 3 seconds, but Gary Teal is 2/10 behind Mick Claridge. We ride on board with Gary, the Virginia's driver, to try and get himself just a little bit more in the points. This is closer than we saw last lap around to the back of Mick Claridge. Stayed this close. I wonder if he could get him down into Turleman. Oh, Mick is way late on the brakes. He's struggling. Gary Teal tries to get up beside him. That hurts his momentum just when he needs to be closer to Mick Claridge. Oh, but Mick's squirming under power.
Got off to the left there in the runoff. Could have been really bad for Claridge. He's going to hold the inside still, and somehow Gary's still not able to get around him.
Wow. This is a robust defense from the number 2 car. And here is where Gary Teal himself now struggling as he falls back from Mick Claridge. Daniel Sadro reeled them in by about a second and a half just with that one little tussle.
Has Gary Teal been a little too patient here? Has he waited too long to try to get around Mick Claridge? Because time running out, he's only got a few more laps, and he's now got to close in that gap as well.
Another potential thought, and since it seems like it's the braking zones that he's using, at least losing at least some of them, I wonder if Mick's maybe got too little fuel in the car and he's trying to save it?
Quite possibly. I mean, it seems like, yeah, I mean, it could be a lot of things right now. That would actually kind of make sense, too, because we've seen him so squirrely over the crests as well, which, I mean, this car is no stranger to anyway, but could be an extra factor in that as well.
He's caught up to him once again. He's a little bit closer. Is this close enough for Gary Teal? No, it is not. Through Boulder. We'll keep half an eye on behind them where Hugh Haycox and Grant Petula are getting close, but ooh, this is a great chance here for Gary Teal coming down to Erst. Mick Claridge once again holding the defensive line. Now he comes back to the racing line out on the right side of the track. Teal so achingly close to moving up to second place.
You can see Teal being more and more aggressive. Now with 3 laps to go, he's got to do something.
Out of Bianchi. Whoa, both of them taking a lot of curb there towards the Kleine chicane. Gary Teal taking a little bit of a look. Oh, but he brakes earlier than Mick Claridge. Bobble from Mick out of the Kleine chicane.
Oh, no!
Oh, what a big bobble sends him spearing into the wall. Mick Claridge immediately toes out.
Just like that, it'll snap on you.
A pressure cooker leads to a costly error for the number 2, overcorrecting and straight into the tires. And I guess that might be a graphic argument for these chicanes, as much as some of us don't like them. Imagine if that car was going a lot faster over that portion. So this moves Gary Teal into second. Without anybody hampering him, he's already using it to pull a gap on Daniel Sadro behind, who gets promoted to third. That allows us to take a look at Hugh Haycox and Grant Petula.
Yeah, these two guys have been battling back for 7th, now 6th with the absence of Mick Claridge. Petula trying to chase down Haycox. Oh, Haycox going to get on the curbing and into the grass there a little bit. That'll allow Petula to close in.
Both of them looking a little bit out of sorts through there. They've got 2 laps to go. Oh, almost getting to the back of him into Bianchi. This is about to get thrilling, it looks like. Again, this is a battle for 6th place down into the Kleine chicane. Petula looking very strong on the binders. This is where we saw Claridge lose the car. Both of these two, though, keeping it steady, keeping the tires on the track.
The way Petula is braking right now, it tells me he's willing to make an aggressive last lap move.
We are on the final lap. You can see the white flag at the top of your screen, but we'll go to our leader when he gets closer to the end of this, staying on the nose of Grant Petula, chasing down Hugh Haycox. British driver racing out of France. His father already out of this race. They get the white flag now as they streak downhill on the front stretch.
Looks like Grant might just be a little too far back here.
Well, we've got all of about 3 corners to go for Michel Dudignon. Up to the Boulder hairpin. That's Hideki Koivisto you see ahead of him, who's about to be lapped. Let's see if he slows up and lets him through. It looks like he's not interested and he wants to finish every lap today because through the X chicane, one of the few drivers to not fall victim to the chicanes here is Michel Dudillon taking the victory in Belgium. It is a monstrous 30 seconds back to Gary Thiel, who has been caught by Daniel Sadro, but with him not being able to make an attack down into the boulder hairpin, I think it unlikely that we'll see Daniel be able to move up one more. Fantastic run from Gary Thiel to go from 4th on the grid to 2nd at the checkered flag. He takes 2nd place. Sadro rounds out your podium.
Marco Kika comes across the line just moments behind them as well. Ben Zoko, they'll round out the top 5.
Zoko taking a little bit of fun after the finish line as Grant Petullo and Matt Wright going to come across as well. Hideki Koivisto a long ways back, not really going to be able to take any position. So that's going to take us to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. But stick around because on screen you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC.
We're almost out of fuel. You'll have to come in for a splash. Three, two, one, now. All clear. Punch it. Great job. You did really well.
Welcome back to Circuit Zolder here in Belgium. Just watched round 6 in the Grand Prix Legends Series. And now that Michel Dudillon has showed up once again, well, he takes another victory. He has been dominant whenever he's been able to arrive this season. He was followed a long ways back by Gary Thiel, who was fighting hard for that 2nd place with Mick Claridge. And the reason you don't see Mick here up at the top as well, he had a huge wreck partway through the race. Daniel Sadro follows him home in 3rd, actually less than a second back from Gary Thiel. He really ran him down at the end. Marco Kika with a smooth drive to P4, and Ben Zoko managed to botch both of his qualifying laps, started from 16th on the grid, wound up with a top 5. That is not too shabby. Hugh Haycox with 6th place and Grant Petullo with 7th. Then it's Matt Wright behind them in P8. Hideki Koivisto is going to take 9th, and Pole Fair rounds out our top 10. Nick?
This is where you start to get down into some of the DNFs or the drivers just trying to salvage a finish, limping across the line with damage. You see Colin Coker going to finish 11th, 2 laps down, with Jasmine Beach right behind him, also 2 laps down in 12th. 3 laps down, Mick Claridge, that heartbreaking finish. That's where he's going to wind up, though, is 13th today. Robert Reynolds going to be behind him, and then 2 cars going to be 7 laps down. That's Rob Olenek and Ian Haycock's 15th and 16th. Andres Bruno had issues very early in this race. He's going to finish 17th, 22 laps down.
We've got some of our podium here to talk to us. First up is second place Gary Teal. Gary, suddenly you found yourself running down Mick Claridge. At what point did you realize he seemed to have some sort of issue?
Well, when I caught him. I never catch Mick, so yeah, I knew he had a problem. I just didn't know what it was, and I was kind of trying to be careful because I really wanted that third place. And so I didn't press it too hard until, I wanted to, I was looking for a big opening, and unfortunately, it looks like Mick's wheel touched the grass there, and he provided that opening. Otherwise, I'd never got past him.
Yeah, it certainly gave us some thrills there late in the race. We talked a lot about the chicanes here, but we saw very few cut course penalties. Do you find them a little bit easier in this car? Because I expected that we'd see many slowdowns.
Yeah, I know when I first started practicing, I was getting a lot of them. You just have to learn where the limits of the track are. And, you don't want to get too close to the limits here, because if you hit those curbs, you get a bounce and lose the front end, and your day's going to be over. I suspect maybe that's what happened to Rob up there.
Now, it's been nearly, I believe, 4 years since this layout was used for the Lotus 49s, but this series is kind of known for being willing to experiment and try some weird combos since it's a tight-knit group. What are your thoughts with this track returning? Do you think it put on a pretty good show, or you kind of think we could give this one a miss for another 4 years?
No, I like this one. Obviously, I was closer to being up near the front of this one, so for me, it's a good track. I like the little weird tracks like this. There's a couple of them I'd like to see on the schedule like this. Shake up the order a little bit.
Yeah, certainly doesn't hurt to have some variety out there. Well, congratulations on a second place. It was a fantastic run for you.
All right. Thanks, guys. See ya.
It was Gary Teal. And I believe up next, Nick is going to be talking to third place Sadro.
I am indeed going to come home with a third place finish today. And Dan, did you expect finishing on the podium today?
No, not at all. No, well, I mean, I was on pace for 5th or 6th, and unfortunately, both Rob and Mick had their issues. I was just happy to have finished as close to Gary as I did.
Yeah, we saw you back battling, like you said, for 5th or 6th throughout most of the race. But I mean, it seemed like no one could get around anyone back there. Passing was so tough today at Zolder.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's such a narrow track. You don't have any long straightaways. Like at Bathurst, you can slipstream down the straightaway and get past somebody into a corner. You're almost always waiting for somebody to make a big mistake.
We talked about earlier, before you hopped in the booth, about just how hard the braking was here and how hard after 24 laps, getting that right every single time. Did you have a big problem with that today, trying to get the car wound up for a lot of the tight fiddling chicanes here?
Just a couple times. I almost ran into Gary into that final chicane once, and thankfully didn't. But honestly, I found myself near the end kind of just slowing down, just moving back my braking mark maybe 5, 10, 15 feet, which actually made me faster, ironically. And just that helped right there, just giving me the confidence that I was going to get to my braking point. I was going to be at the speed I needed, and then I could make the turn.
Yeah, definitely played out well for you. Looks like we are off to Italy next round. You get to stretch your legs in Monza a little bit.
Monza? Already? Again? Well, if we're going back there, that's great. That'll be a big draft track, and maybe I can pass some.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll see you in the booth once again. But congratulations on your unexpected podium today.
Well, thanks, and congratulations again to Michelle and Gary for a great race.
That was Daniel Sadro, third place out here at Belgium, and a driver who was looking like he might be able to get a podium, but then fell short of it was Mick Claridge. Mick, the big question on everybody's mind is, was there an issue, and what was it?
Oh, hi, Joe. Yeah, there was. Just before the session opened, I decided to calibrate my pedals because I wasn't getting full power on the gas, and I did that, and that was it. The pedals were just gone. I couldn't calibrate them, and then I realised that it was something to do with the clutch pedal. So every time I put the clutch full down, the gas pedal was at 100%. So I got into the race session and disabled all the pedals, and I started again and disabled the clutch and put that on my letter C on my keyboard for a clutch, and then drove around with a gas and the brake. And yeah, it only happened a few times, but it always seemed to happen in the wrong place. You know, it was happening right in the hairpin. You know, I'd go down to second gear and I'd be at full power, you know, like full power gas and full power brake, you know, and that's why I was coming off. And then, but there was nothing wrong with the pedals when I crashed.
Yeah, that was another disappointing moment. I mean, tell us a little bit about that. How is that crest over that long left-hand sweeper after the first chicane? Are you able to stay fully on the power, or how does the car handle it?
No, it's not too good around there. Yeah, you come out of that chicane and you're sort of glad you made it through there, and then you sort of go over the brow, and just as it, you know, get onto the top of it, you know, the car goes really light, and I'm sort of right in the mid-range of fourth gear there, and yeah, so you do have to lift, and you really have to pay attention, and basically, like I said, there was nothing wrong with the pedals at that moment. I was just watching in my mirror to see what Gary was doing because I thought, oh, he's going to get me here, so I just literally looked in the mirror, and that was it. Because I was looking in the mirror, I just didn't see what I was doing on the track, you know.
That's unfortunate. And next week, you and I are going to be having a little bit of a chat. Do I need to bring donuts or anything to this thing, or is there anything special planned for this?
Yeah, man, bring some donuts, bring some beers, and yeah, we're going to have some good fun at Monza, mate.
All right, that sounds like it's going to be a good time. Well, commiserations for today, though. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better at over in Italy.
Yeah, cheers, Joe. See you next week, mate.
It was Mick Claridge, wound up 13th today. And it's going to close us up here for today's broadcast. But of course, we want to thank the Lotus 49 community for bringing us on for a season of coverage. And of course, to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing eSports network. If you want to catch more of the Lotus 49 series, all you got to do is subscribe here to IESN, and you'll catch it each week in your YouTube feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As mentioned, going to Italy next week. That'll be at Monza, but it is not the Roval this time, so it'll be a little bit different. It still will be incredibly fast in this car. That'll be Saturday, April 27th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.